I just click.
Hello, everyone. This is the Socially Relevant Film Festival's 7th edition online, and I would like to introduce you our moderators. If I can get to their bios, I have been having huge computer problems here, and again, I am stuck. So maybe what I will do is just say that Ching Juhl is a filmmaker, videographer, and she's been with the film festival for a very long time. And Erica Peak, who is the co-moderator, has been a partner of the film festival for a very long time. And she's from Indie Picks, our distributing industry partner. I will leave you in their able hands, and I will try to get out of the studio if I can. But I may not be able to because my computer is stuck. So I'm just letting everybody know what is happening. So you carry on while I try to solve my tech.
Okay. Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for being so patient. I know that we're living in a technology world, and sometimes we're kind of like out of control of our machines and devices. And then, so what can you do, right? So, just fortunate we're all here, and I am Ching Juhl, filmmaker. My co-host is Erica Peak. Also, she works for Indie Pig, and today we're fortunate to have two artists with us. Jason Reid is a producer for his film called Tell My Story, and Paul Kaufman is the filmmaker for the film Butter. Now, two films has a they both have a similar theme, is that it deals with teen problem, deals with suicidal, deals with pain, yeah, and tragedy. And in Paul's situation, the Butter film is a feature film, and it's a comedy. So it ends triumphantly, ends happily. Where Jason's film is that he himself is in the film, and he's the producer, and he lost his 14-year-old son, Ryan Reid, 2019. So today we'll talk about their films. We'll talk about the issues. Hopefully we gain some wisdom out of the tragedy. Hopefully we get some comfort from talking about it. Hopefully we help teens and help parents, help teachers, help adults. Thank you so much. So should we start with Eric? Eric, do you have a question for Paul or Jason, please?
Sure. I actually came prepared with a bunch of questions written out, so I'll be referencing them here. I did have a couple of questions for Jay. I'll start with those. Did making the film bring you a sense of closure?
I would love to say yes.
Sure.
But the answer is no.
Understandable.
I don't think this is the kind of thing. I lost Ryan. We lost Ryan in March of 2018. And it's not something that goes away. I know I've talked to a lot of people now that have lost their kids. And you learn to live with it. But there's never a sense of closure.
This answer makes my question seem incredibly naive, so forgive it in that sense.
No, it's okay. I mean, look,
yeah.
It's perfectly okay.
Are you planning to tell more stories in film or other mediums, or through your foundation that you started, chooselife.org?
Well, I did a TED Talk in September of 2019, or October 2019. I did another one in October of, I did one in 2018, did one 2019. We did a goal cast that came out in February, right around, or actually beginning of March, right around the pandemic time. And so those are all out there, and they've gotten a bunch of views and been well received. We're going to take a version of the film, Tell My Story, which will keep coming out on video on demand in September for Suicide Prevention Month. And we plan on doing a version of that in a 45 to 50-minute cut, which will be more prescriptive for parents. This is a theatrical documentary. I want to have something that you can bring into your school and actually show as to here's how you actually talk to your kids. Here's the things you should say to your kids, and here's how you help your kids. Because my belief is that we can end teen suicide. We can make a huge change in the trajectory of teen suicide, but it's up to us parents to make that change. And my goal is to help parents understand how to make that change.
Yeah, I have a question for Jay as well. I know it's been, it's a pretty devastating. It is devastating event happened to you and your family, and not only you managed to make a film about it to share your story in such an intimate way, an artful way, and you also started a foundation called ChooseLife.org. Would you please tell us about it?
Sure. So ChooseLife.org, I repurposed the old anti-abortion site because at the time I bought it, I didn't know why. It was $10,000, but I bought it anyway. And because that's what I wanted Ryan to do. I wanted kids to choose life. And so I kept the name, but essentially the mission behind ChooseLife.org is to end teen suicide by the year 2030. And the reason why I believe we can do that, and people might go, Jay, you're crazy. You can't end teen suicide. Well, maybe I can't end it completely, but the raising awareness about suicide has not helped. Maybe it would be worse, but the reality is it's gone up every year. It's going up now as we speak. And it's not going well with all these kids locked up and have been locked up for the last 90 days. If they were anxious or they were depressed before, they're not better now. And why I believe we can end teen suicide is because as parents, if we own our child's mental health, if we have the right conversations about their mental health, if we actually take it into our hands as opposed to waiting for our schools or our doctors or our government to legislate it, because that'll never happen. But if we actually own it ourselves, if we have the right conversations with our kids and actually ask them how they're doing, the things I didn't do as a parent, we can make a difference. We can change it. Because when I grew up, I'm 53 years of age, and a couple of you might be, Paul, you and I might be around the same age, close to it, or
very close.
And this did not.
What do you mean? I'm 35.
You're 35. So even when you grew up, Paul, this did not happen. If you look back when you were a kid, when you were 12 or 13 years of age, do you remember the conversations around suicide about kids killing themselves?
No,
neither do I. Because it just didn't happen.
It wasn't as much of an epidemic back then. It was very rare. The numbers were much lower.
Yeah, and so what happens is that this whole epidemic of teen suicide is man-made. We created it. We allowed it to happen. So I believe that we can take us back in time to where families were more important and where kids were more connected, where we didn't have as much screen time, as much anxiety, as much pressure. And if we do that, we can bring us back to where I grew up and you grew up. It was a different world. So that's what I wanted.
Thank you. Erica, you want?
I guess I'll follow up with another question for Jay. Just not closure at all, of course. Purpose. There's a lot of purpose in sharing the story and telling the story. And there's the personal connection that you go into in the film. Your son left you a note saying, "Tell my story." And, that's the compelling reason why you're doing just that. So I guess to rephrase the first question I asked, is it fulfilling to you personally to be so involved in these causes and to be actively getting your film out there to a wider audience at festivals and online and telling the story through TED Talks or, you know, any other endeavors that you might pursue?
So I would answer it this way.
Right.
Yes, I believe I'm making a difference. People tell me I'm making a difference. I talk to parents every week that are thankful that they watched the TED Talk, the Goalcast, or saw the film and changed the way they were parenting. So it's a purpose. I think I'm making a difference. I hope to continue to make a difference. Still wish I didn't happen this way.
Sure.
But has become my purpose. It's become my calling. But I got a question for Paul, if you guys
Sure.
Great.
Paul, what was the inspiration for Butter?
Well, first of all, Jason, I just want to thank you for doing what you do, and to you know, I have 2 children who are older now, and to think of the loss that you have personally suffered, I just couldn't comprehend the pain. And I appreciate you making the documentary, and I enjoyed it very much. Now to answer why I made Butter. Butter was based on a book, and the book had been around for a while, and the author of the book had been doing some tours, Aaron Jade Lang, at some high schools, and some high schools were using the book as curriculum, you know, for the teenagers to read. I was looking for a movie to do that would have a social impact, a positive social impact, or somewhere where I could, you know, bring its subject matter to the world and socially try and make it more relevant and more understandable. And Butter was just something that I came across on Amazon, where I go searching for most of my material.
Isn't that interesting? So you actually?
I'd love to tell you. I'd love to tell you that I have I have an intense story personally about suicide or suicide prevention, but I really don't. I do now, after 2 years of development and talking to lots of parents, teaming up with some nonprofits, and as you said before, we can definitely reduce suicide rates, especially within teenagers, and it does start at home. And it really is about mental illness or mental wellness, and it's trying to get your teenagers to communicate with you as parents. Jay, in your documentary, you said you quoted Ryan saying, "If I only had told you my problems before they got too big," and that's exactly where it lies. With Butter, we tried to get through many themes. One is communicate with your parents. One of our partners is czawkward.org, which this might be backwards, but czawkward.org. They deal with the awkwardness of silence between people, and mainly teenagers, being able to discuss how they're feeling and their mental illness. And it's done with comedy. And people say, well, how could you make a comedy about suicide? And one of the reasons is because that's how to get teenagers' attention. If I would have made it as a dark movie and hit the teenagers over the head, we played this movie and we screened it for lots of teenagers. We did Q&As, and they liked the tone. It's like an old John Hughes movie, which we all grew up with, or at least Jason and I grew up with. Yeah. That's kind of where we are. Is CC's awkward. It's all comedic about these awkward moments, and it teaches the teenagers how to open up. It's also, we're talking about training, and I know it does start at home, but our movie was also dedicated to Mallory Grossman. Mallory was a 12-year-old girl in New York who took her own life, dealt with a lot of online bullying. You can go to mallorysarmy.org. And she had been bullied, and the New Jersey junior high school that she went to knew of the problem. And the principal just called her in and the bully and just said, just hug it out. And unfortunately what we're dealing with is that we're dealing with teachers and principals who are untrained to deal with these situations. You know, my movie is about suicide prevention. It's about bullying. Bullying can lead to suicide. It's not the only reason, because mental illness is the major factor. But people need to be trained. People in our schools, teachers, principals, they need to be trained on how to deal with these situations. And that could also save some lives.
I completely agree. And the challenge is that a lot of the schools right now, a lot of the school districts aren't very well trained. And when these things happen, when they see kids with mental health issues or bullying issues, they don't react necessarily the right way. And I think a lot of it comes back to the whole idea that if you've never been depressed, you don't understand depression. Yeah. And I struggle with that too, because I've never had true depression in my life. I've a little anxious here or there, sure. Anxious around the pandemic sometimes, sure. Depression, no. I mean, someone who's truly depressed, when I see all blue skies, they see only gray skies. And I'm not going to convince them the skies are blue, because they just won't see it that way.
Yeah.
So
I suffer from depression, and it's really debilitating, and you really just want it to end. You know, many suicides just happen instantly. There's no premeditation. You know, they just say, I'm in so much pain right now. You know, we call it sort of that moment. You know, what do you do in that moment where you just say, I'm going to turn off the light switch? You know, there's an organization called Be Here Now, which interviewed and spoke to the 29 suicide survivors that jumped off of the Golden Gate Bridge. And all 29 said the second they jumped, they regretted it. The second they jumped. So for some suicides, it's a split thing. I'm in so much pain from my depression. I don't want to live another minute. And then that's when they do it. And then some are much more premeditated. You know, the notes that Ryan wrote to your family and to you, what an extraordinary young man. I mean, the way he worded everything, and his insight, and how he knew you guys, and how he knew the effects, just an extraordinary young man. I've never experienced or seen any letters that have been like that. You know, so they're very, very affecting, Jason.
So Jason, do you mind if I ask this? Is when people are depressed, there's several different type of. Some are chronic depressing, some are situation depressing, like people lost their loved ones, or people lost relationships, and some are just chemical imbalance, or genetically inherited from not necessarily the last generation person. Sometimes it can be a cross generation. So do you know anything about Ryan's situation?
I know, because had I known, I would like to think I would do something about it. I would have done something about it. Ryan, I hate to say it, but Ryan hid everything. He didn't show this side of him. You know, I have 3 other kids, and if you ask me who is depressed and at risk of something like this, the 3 other names would come up way before Ryan's would have. Ryan made a point of putting on a smile every day and making people laugh. And he'd be grumpy sometimes, but not as grumpy as my other kids. So he had
I've heard the story before, yeah.
So I believe he had a chemical imbalance that I just didn't know. But he was not. It was not a split second decision. He planned the whole thing.
Yeah.
He knew he'd be out of town. He knew I wouldn't be able to stop him.
Yeah. You were out of town, right? You were on vacation.
So I mean, sometimes, like Paul said, it's I want to turn off the light, and sometimes I think I just don't want to be here at all. Yeah.
And if you know someone who is very depressed, you should ask them if they're depressed, And if they say yes, you should ask them, have they thought about taking their own lives? And if they say yes, then the next question is, have you thought about how you would do it? And if they say yes, then they're really in a potential danger zone.
And at that point, you need to get them to a hospital or a doctor.
Yeah. If they really thought about how exactly they would do it and all that stuff, they really need immediate help.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. This is something that, you know, sometimes parents think they can just, it'll go away. It's a phase. If they're looking for attention. Well, let's just say maybe you're right, but what if you're wrong? Right? What if you're wrong? Yeah. I mean, sure, there's probably some kids, and I've heard the stories because I talk to parents all the time, and it turns out it was just an attention-seeking thing. And once they got to the doctor, they, oh my gosh, I never meant any of that stuff. I was just, what am I doing here? But a lot of time, no, it's not. And people are afraid. They'll say, like Paul said, you ask, have you thought about killing yourself? And parents will go, I'm not going to ask that question because I'm not going to put that thought in their head. Well, let me explain something to anybody who thinks that. You're not putting the thought in their head. Yeah. The thought's in their head. You're not going to give, they're not going, oh my gosh, I've never thought about suicide. They've thought about suicide.
There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame in it too, with kids and people talking about wanting to take their own lives. So they are reluctant to speak out and to talk to someone about it.
Yeah. It's a way of escape. And I have personal experience about that. I think 26 years ago, I want to kill myself. And I wasn't brave enough to, get a weapon or, taking whatever medications or something. So I was like so miserable in my life. I walk on the street. I literally remember still, I want some car just to hit me over. It was that bad. And it's not because the one day thought. It was a long period of being depressed. And I remember I stayed, I actually lived in Pittsburgh in someone's attic for about a summer. And I remember I cannot even brush my teeth. I cannot get out of bed. It was miserable, So I know how that feels.
How did you come out of that, Ching?
That's a good question, Jason. One of the things is to sort of break your pattern. I was I didn't have a job then. You lost a long-term relationship. I moved to attic of somebody's house and stayed there, hiding there. And I remember when the whole family goes to school or work, they had a little girl, and mom and dad, Jewish family. They leave the house at 8 or something in the morning. I would snuck downstairs and just sit there and watch TV for all day, And then when they come back, and I escape back to the attic. What breaks down is because I actually I was taking a year off from a job, so I decided to go back to that job. Go back to that job involves driving across the country, packing all my shit, into a van. That broke sort of my depression because I had to do all these things by myself. So I remember that. It's not typical though, because I didn't take pills or anything.
So Ching, you made the comment that you weren't brave enough to do something. I think it's the opposite. I think you were brave enough to stay alive. I think it's a completely different thing. And I think that's what kids need to understand or everybody needs to understand is, I kind of get it. I can't say I understand exactly what they think or what people who are depressed think, but the bravery comes from being brave enough to stay another day. The bravery comes from facing all the things that you don't like and you feel depressed about. The bravery comes from realizing that even though you feel that people don't love you, there's actually a whole bunch of people who love you. I think that's the bravery.
Good point.
And the breaking of that, like you're saying, is the changing of what you spend your days doing, the changing of the routine. if your kids are inside watching TV and playing video games and doing all that, which they have been a lot lately, getting them outside and moving, getting them into fresh air, finding a new activity, something that breaks the thought pattern, so their mind can reset in a new way.
Right.
I mean, Paul, what you've done a lot. You've studied a lot of this for your film. I mean, am I right or am I wrong or am I?
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. I'm very pro medication. Some people are anti-medication. I think if medication works, and depression it does not only come from social pressure and bullying and people feeling that they're failures, but it's a chemical imbalance too for most. And it's learning about that chemical imbalance and how to deal with it. I think there's therapy. Medication is not for everybody. But yeah, it was different when we were kids. Social media causes so many suicides. Teenagers commit suicide online. It's different. When we were kids, we would play kick the can. We would play baseball in the street. We would, kids are staying inside now, and they're glued to their computers, or they're glued to their phones, and the social bullying that's done. It used to be you would just go to school, and the bully would follow you after school and tell you he's going to meet you at the flagpole. Today, it's nonstop. It's 24/7 with the Snapchats and the groups of young people just bullying each other.
Well, I mean, the bullies when you and I grew up, Paul, and I was bullied. I mean, most of us were bullied by somebody, but the bullies were big people, and they were tougher guys. They would pick on the smaller guys like me, right? And you'd see them because they were there, and you'd escape back to your house, and then you knew you were safe. Well, now everybody can be a bully. You don't have to be this big, strong guy. You can bully the big guy because he doesn't see you or know you. You're just
in our movie, the doctor says bullying comes in all forms, because Butter doesn't see that he was bullied. He said, "No, they like me. They finally accepted me." And bullying comes in all forms. Bullying comes in spreading rumors. And teenagers spread false rumors. Then all of a sudden, the person goes to school and they're a pariah. And they, that builds the depression, that builds the want to just check out, and the depression gets debilitating. It's so deep, Jason, and I know you haven't had it, but it's just extremely painful, where you really do just want to, God, what can I do to get rid of this pain? But there are many other ways to do it. And
well, and your comments about medication, I think, are really important, because there's some people who are just so anti-medication for the sake of being anti-medication. But this is something that you can't always cure just by getting outside and going for a run. If it's a chemical imbalance, it needs to be fixed. And all those medications work just slightly differently, because you had one that you don't like, get another one.
We need to get rid of the stigma. There's such a stigma behind medication. And I know in the last couple of years, a lot of celebrities, Lady Gaga and different people, have spoken about the depression, but there's still a stigma. And the way that I like to explain it is, if you have a heart condition, you take medication. If you have a liver condition, you take medication. If you have a brain condition, you should take medication. It's an organ. It's no different than taking a pill to fix, other organs, but there's this stigma that, oh, there's something wrong with your brain. There's something wrong with you. And it's just an organ that we have no control over, when it comes to depression and when it comes to the chemical imbalance,
I would love it if we got to a point where kids were as comfortable talking about how their stomach is sore, has a stomach ache, as the fact they're just feeling sad and depressed today.
Yeah, it's pain. It's internal pain.
I mean, we need to get there. We need to be able to have those conversations openly, where you're not a kid just comes back from the day off of school and says, "Well, where were you?" I'm like, I just didn't feel it today. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. The bullies suffer. A lot of the kids that do the bullying and beat people up on social media, and these kids are suffering. These kids are suffering at home, and as much as it is as being good parents to try and get your child to open up and talk to you, it's to be good parents and teach your children to be kind and teach kindness, which is another element of butter. Be kind, because the bullies like it when people are kind to them. It makes them feel good, when they're with their friends, and they just need to learn that they should treat how they want to be treated, and it starts in the home.
Yeah. So Nora is back to our panel. She has some announcement to make.
Yes, I have been following part of the conversation, which is very, very deep and very interesting and very useful for whoever is able to listen. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen technical issues, we've had to move the chat to Juhl Media here. And I must apologize to our viewers. I've already posted the link on the previous chats. Also, when this is finished and it's recorded, we are going to post it on the festival YouTube channel. So whoever didn't get a chance to see the live show is able to follow the recording. I apologize again. Technology is something we have absolutely no control over. It controls our lives, and now more and more it's becoming the case now that we are more relying on this thing here that we are speaking through to get to each other. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here, for opening up and talking about such an important issue. Not only opening up and talking about such an important issue, but making films, putting your money where your mouth is, and spending years of your lives. I mean, making a movie is not a 5-minute thing. It's like you spend years on something like this, and in the end, you have a product that people watch and hopefully learn from, are enlightened. I'm not going to say are entertained in the case of Tell My Story, because it's hardly the word to use for it, but maybe enlightened, educated, and prevented for future such cases. I want to thank Erica and Ching for taking over and doing the moderating today. And also especially Erica from IndiePix, who are our industry partners. Now I'm trying to get this to be seen properly. It is a enter to win option where DVDs of their new titles are given to people who are registering to hear some of these talks, the live Meet the Filmmaker talks. And one winner is going to be selected per session. Also, they are generously offering to send thank you presents to the moderators who are with us today. So thank you all again. As I said earlier in previous talks, there is no film festival without films. And our film festival is exclusively dedicated to social issues. Like your cases when you had personal situations, personal stories, which drove you to make films, I had a personal issue and a personal story with a violent death to very close people to me, namely my cousin and my uncle, who were stabbed to death in a horrible hate crime. And as the 10th anniversary of their death approached, I decided to commemorate it in a meaningful way. And instead of doing a festival that concentrated on non-violent films, which was the initial impulse, I opened it up to include all sorts of social issues. And of course, I was having enough of all those movie posters that we see everywhere with guns and machine guns and daggers and all sorts of violent images that invade our privacies. I want to ask questions too, but I don't want to ask a question that already was answered while I was gone. So maybe I should ask a question to Ching and Erica and you have been involved with the festival and you have seen these wonderful films. I think you will voice my same feeling of thanking the filmmakers. We cannot thank the filmmakers enough for their bravery and also for their trust in us. Because if you didn't trust us, you wouldn't give us your film, first of all. And also when in such a short period of time we decided to go online, some people might have not liked that idea. And I also
for keeping it going.
Yeah, and I would like to congratulate Butter because they are in distribution now. If I'm not mistaken, ArcLight has picked you up, guys.
ArcLight, yeah, and they're in Cannes right now, seeing how we do there. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
All right, so I'm not going to take over the entire conversation. Let Ching and Erica continue. There is a message here. Ask me and Erica. I don't get it. Ching, write it again.
It's okay.
See if there are
I'll take care.
comments. Yeah.
I'll take care.
Thank you all very much.
You.
Thank you
Thank
to
you, Nora.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Nora, for a wonderful job.
Ask me questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to thank our filmmaker and Jason and Paul, and I especially I especially want to thank and appreciate what Nora does. I know she's like, Superwoman she does so many things herself. Of course, she has a team of people helping her, but still, she's the main captain. Without her captainship, the boat will sink. So thank you so much for your leadership and your entrepreneurship and your artistry. So I learned so much from you, Nora.
It's likewise, Ching. Thank you so much. By collaborating together, we become richer and we learn from each other. It's very, very important,
Yeah. So I would like to ask a question actually to Erica. Erica, can you tell us a little bit of what you do and what your company does, please?
Sure. Well, Indie Pix Films, I'm the creative director there, and it's a distributor of independent film, international film, mainly in the US, and we bring stories to a wider audience, basically online and in DVD format. And getting important stories out there is very important to us all here. So, I think that's the connective tissue, so to speak, of what brings us together in that sense. But yeah, I work with artwork and promotional film things. So, that's what I do.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I do in a very short version. Of course, right now you landed on a Juhl Media platform. This is my YouTube channel. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. And I'm very passionate about interviewing people. So this is like awesome, And when the lockdown started in March, I started right away with interviewing a group of people and then starting individual people. So Nora was on my list. She was my guest also. So I have been talking to filmmakers and musicians. I'm going to talk to some rock and roll next week, and all kinds of people, physicians, COVID recovery people, my son, teenager. And so it's like a sitting down, having an hour and 15 minutes talk with one person, which you think it's a long time, but then it just time passes so quickly. You get to, so I feel so gratifying to learn from my guests and to get to know their life a little bit, their profession a little bit, their artistry a little bit. So it's a really satisfying. So I do a lot of talk, and then I'm a musician, so I have a lot of music videos, and I also make short documentaries, films. So two of my films were shown at Nora's Film Festival. One is called Lingering Time. The other is called That Moment. So that's enough for me. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ching. That's great.
Nice, Ching.
Well, do I get a chance to introduce you properly, guys? Because in the beginning, it was like, I want to do my introductions, get me out of here so I can see my technical issues. So maybe I'll do it. It's not too late. Well,
Okay.
Juhl is a filmmaker, educator, and concert violist, yeah, and the owner of Juhl Media Productions, where we are hosted right now. She has been creating documentary shorts, news, and live classical music concerts, videos for over 16 years. Her documentary short, That Moment, which she just spoke about, world premiered at the Socially Relevant Film Festival in March 2017. The only one is a 3-minute promo video, and also Lingering Time, which was a beautiful rendition of the Shanghai Music Conservatory 60th anniversary reunion. Ching is a full scholarship recipient from Indiana University, where she gained a master's of music degree. As a violist, she has performed with the Jade String Trio, Phoenix Symphony, and Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and has appeared in Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, and Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. Erica arrived at Indie Bits in 2014 with a background in jazz events and talent booking. She regularly connects with filmmakers on what deliverables are and will best suit their film's distribution. She holds a BFA in film, TV, and radio production from Tisch School of the Arts, is a student of Tai Chi. Wow, this is amazing. And loves to gaze into the digital stratosphere. And we have also our guests, and we thank you so much. When we were going to do the festival in March, Paul was so busy, he was not on the email chains too often because he was shooting another film.
Yeah.
So maybe he wants to tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I make a lot of the Christmas movies for Hallmark and Lifetime. So it's called Christmas on the Vine, Lifetime. Fun romantic comedy. Look out for it this Christmas.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, all right. So now that the introductions have been done.
Should I read Paul's short biography?
Yes, please do.
Very short.
Get to know each other.
Okay. Yeah. I googled Paul and Jason. Paul is born in London, England. He is an accomplished Emmy Award and Canadian Screen Award winning director and producer. Paul made his directorial debut on his long cherished project, Run the Wild Fields, for Showtime, which earned numerous critical honors, including an Emmy Award and Best Director.
Wow, that's impressive. It's interesting that you mentioned Hallmark, because I have a secret, if anybody wants to listen.
Yes, I want a secret. Yes.
That 20-hour film festival business, my day ends, and at like midnight, I say, okay, enough for today. That's it. I need to chill. So what do? I go to Netflix, and these days I'm hung up on A Call for the Heart, or the Heart Calls, or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
You know which one?
Yeah.
The Mountie and Elizabeth and this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm kind of, funny piece.
Hallmark movies, you just chill out. There's no violence.
Yeah, exactly. People are
Yeah.
always loving each other, even with the hugest conflicts they have. In the
Yeah.
end, they're friends and everybody's happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
And if there is a gunshot, it's just the bad guy, and we forget about it very quickly. So I chill with that. There's
Yeah.
You.
You made me,
There's
Nora.
millions
Nora,
of closet Hallmark chillers.
Nora, you made me watch Hollywood. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I have a question for Jason now. Jason, in your film, I know there's somewhere you said you fix other people. People come to you, in a high position, and then you did not fix your son. I tried to Google you. I couldn't find your short biography. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you fix people?
Oh, so I own a company called National Services Group with my partners. We're in construction. We own 4 or 5 different brands across the country, and I coach CEOs through CEO Coaching International. So I coach 14 CEOs around the globe.
Oh my God.
I'm the guy who I run businesses and I help people run businesses. So people come to me because they have challenges. They don't come to me with good news. They come to me with how do I get this solved, and I help solve their problems. And in that comment in the movie was that that's what I do. I fix stuff. And I was unable to fix my son because I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Thank you.
So that's the world I live in. I was not a social activist in any way.
Oh,
in fact,
yeah.
I was probably the opposite up until Ryan's death. I was the guy who said, I'm going to spend all my time building my businesses, making money, trying to make people's lives better within my business.
Yeah.
And then as I retired, I was going to go figure out what I was going to do with that money to go help save the world.
Yeah, I really like your quote on one of your, I think, website. I think you said we need to ask the right questions as parents. We need to have more vulnerable conversations with our kids. And we need to take ownership and responsibility. When your child is physically unwell, we all take ownership of that and make sure they get the help and support they need. So why don't we have the same attitude when it comes to their mental health? That's what you said.
Yep.
That was very powerful.
Thank you. Look, I think I'm really appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate you having me on here with Paul, because even though I haven't seen Butter completely, I got a sense of what Butter was from the trailer. And I think that people need to see movies like Butter. Because Butter is entertaining. It was very well shot. It looks the dialogue is crisp and funny, and you just can see how well you can see Paul as a director. Even the short minute I saw, going, wow, he does a really good job. And I was telling him earlier, he directed episodes of Grimm, which happened to be the show that Ryan and I would watch.
Yeah.
And that's just just a huge appreciation for Paul and his body of work. But watching, people need to see something like Butter, and maybe they see themselves in Butter, and maybe they see themselves as different characters, and they want to change the way they are or change the way they react to people. And I think that's really important. And I think that parents need to Tell My Story so they understand how serious this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a double bill, Jason. It's a good double bill.
It is good.
Yeah.
Well, we're cutting this a little short because of the fact that we had the technical issues and we had to transport it and lost time. But at 5:30, I have another live chat to go to.
Understood.
So the people are probably waiting outside the studio, knocking on the door, on the virtual door, trying to get in. So I'm going to thank you all again.
Well, thank you, everybody. You guys have been terrific. Everybody. It's a great film festival, and congratulations on taking it online and keeping it going.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You guys did great, and it was a great conversation, so thank you for having me.
Yep. Okay, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wish you both the best with your film.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, Erica. Bye,
Bye.
Nora.
Bye, Nora.
Bye. Are we off now?
I'm gonna end the